Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. And this is a paid request for Devon. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it. PayPal is usually the best bet, or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box over there, or over there, wherever the info box is today. Thank you, Devon. And today he requested a review of the documentary Pennywise, the story of it, which I have seen this before, so it's my second time watching it, and it's a good documentary. Like, if you enjoy the film, I think you would enjoy the documentary. It's about 2 hours long. They get a lot of the people involved with production. A lot of people, actors, the director, a lot of people involved were interviewed. And first and foremost, I've always been a fan of the original It miniseries. I saw that when it came out back in the day on ABC. Because I grew up on a farm, we only had like 3-4 channels. One of them was ABC. And being a fan of horror films, I remember watching as a kid and the film freaking me out. Nowadays, I think it's a well-acted movie. I think some of the special effects are pretty fun. Tim Curry steals the show as Pennywise. And unpopular opinion, I love the second half. In fact, I like the second half more than the first because while I do like the first half quite a bit, the second half, I love those actors. You know, John Ritter, Richard Thomas, Harry Anderson, Dennis Christopher. I love those actors and them getting to be more of the star and them interacting with each other and talk with each other. I don't mind the spider. I think the spider looks cool. I think it's a good practical effect. I get it though, because you're so honed in on Tim Curry as Pennywise that when he's taken away, it's kind of like, there's that sense of loss. And the spider was in the book, so if you don't blame someone, blame Stephen King. And then you look at stuff in the book, it's like, oh, here's a turtle, some space turtle, and infinity, like stuff that you, I guess if you're filmed nowadays, it'd be a lot of over-the-top CGI. And I'll take the spider any day over Pennywise being insulted and turned into a baby like in the new one. I mean, I guess pick your poison. You just say neither are good? Okay. Well, my poison is I'll take the big damn spider over your villain turned into a damn baby because he got made fun of. I know there's supposed to be some themes about that, but I don't care. It looked really stupid, in my opinion. But anyway. It was well produced. It was well edited, this documentary. And I think it's from the same guys that did The Fright Night, You're So Cool, Brewster, The Story of Fright Night 1 and 2. And it's well edited where they did old footage of Stephen King, telling stories at conventions, like how he came up with the story, that he was on a bridge, and he imagined if something reached up and grabbed me on this bridge. And it took like a period of 5 years to get the story It. There's another piece of old footage later on where he's on Conan O'Brien. Because Stephen King, you rarely ever get him to do a sit-down interview, especially on a movie that's related to one of his projects, one of his books. So this is the best you can get. Even though I think this is one of the few that Stephen King liked based on his work. But hey. At least there's enough older footage that you get the idea of Stephen King, being an important part of this. But yeah, I mean, when I say they got a lot of people, they got the director, Tommy Lee Wallace, who of course worked on Fright Night Part 2, Halloween 3, among other films. The kids, you have the girl that played the young Bev. You have the kid, I forget their names, I'm bad with names, who played the younger version of John Ritter. You have the kid who played the younger version of Dennis Christopher. You had the kid that played the younger version of Tim Reed. Let's see. Jonathan Brandis sadly passed away. You did get Seth Green interviewed, which was cool. He played the younger Harry Anderson. And even the older actors, you got Richard Thomas, you got Dennis Christopher, you got Tim Reed, you got Richard Masur. Of course, sadly, Harry Anderson and John Ritter passed away. I guarantee 100% if John Ritter was still around, he would have talked about the film. Because I love John Ritter, and it was a chance for him to do something more serious. It was a chance to do something more dramatic. And he still had his sweetness to it. Maybe a little bit of humor, but it was still a fairly serious role, and it was a great change of pace for John Ritter. But I miss John Ritter. Same with Harry Anderson. I mean, love him in the movie. He's very funny. And again, that's some of the reasons why I love the second half of that miniseries. And of course, they do interview Tim Curry. Now, of course, this is after Tim Curry's had a stroke. So you tell his mouth is a bit crooked, and he's talking, but he's slurring a little bit. But it was still nice to see him in there for a bit. There's some good lines that he has, like he's told that it poisoned their childhood when they saw it, and he says, "You shouldn't have been watching it." At the end, where he's like, "I'm proud of it. It's a cracking story." So they say it's nice that you got Tim Curry in there. They said have some of the guys that worked with Fantasy 2 effects, that worked on some of the creatures, the manifestations, the mummy, the werewolf, of course the spider at the end. So like I said, they got quite a few people involved with this, so it was able to tell a fuller story. They talked about how apparently, like, they also talked with the guy who wrote the first draft to get this to fruition. They talked with him. He talks about what he was working with and what he was trying to do, and how when he was working on it, George Romero was first approached. And George Romero, his suggestions, he wanted an 8 to 10 episode show. Just kind of like how they do like Cobra Kai, Stranger Things, stuff in this nature, like the Netflix formula. He wanted 8 to 10 episodes because it's a very lengthy book. It's a very packed book. But it's going to cost a lot more money. It's going to cost a lot more because there's a lot more to shoot. There's a lot more time. Maybe a lot more locations. Longer that you got to pay the actors for. And the network got big cold feet, and they said, well, we'll do 4 hours. George did not want that, so he left. Now, I'm not sure if they mentioned how Tommy Lee Wallace got the job. If they saw something he did that they liked. Fright Night 2, Halloween 3, I don't know, but he got the job. He talked about how he loved the first half of the script, but he did not like the second half. And that's why you look at the credits, his name is on the rewritten portions of the second half. He mentions something about how the husband of Beverly and Ed O'Toole's character, he kind of became the villain, controlled by Pennywise. I thought that was a pretty weird decision. And Tommy kept talking about it wasn't like the book. So he rewrote the second half to try to be more like the book. Other bits of info. I mean, granted, I'm giving it away, so if you don't want info given away, I would say check it out. Like I said, if you like the documentary, I mean, if you like the movie, you're definitely going to want to see the documentary on it. So, spoilers. But yeah, John Wayne Gacy apparently did a painting of Pennywise. Can't say I'm surprised. Other people that are up for Pennywise, Harvey Fierstein For those who don't know, he was the guy talked with Jeff Goldblum in Independence Day, who has that unique voice, and then later he's in the car, and he's like, and the right before he gets his car run over by the kaleidoscope of destruction coming at him. He worked on Robin Williams' face in Mrs. Doubtfire. I forget what his character name was, and helped make that character's face. He's been in a few other stuff. I mean, I don't see that voice working. I mean, maybe that Charlie voice, but it would seem a bit too much, which is his natural voice, but it just seemed like it was just weirdly enough trying too hard. Roddy McDowall, which would have been interesting. I think Roddy McDowall could have pulled it off. I don't think Roddy McDowall has played. I mean, he's obviously dealt with makeup with Planet of the Apes. I don't know if he's ever played a character that evil, so that would have been interesting to see. He might have, but I just haven't seen the movie. Because I think of like the films he's in: Fright Night 2, Class of 1984, among other stuff. Alice Cooper, that was probably one of those like 5 minutes. Hey, we could sell it as a gimmick. Nah, not going to take it seriously. But Tim Curry was the best choice, and Tim Curry definitely mates that film, mates that movie. There's a lot of other good stuff to it, but Tim Curry's the MVP of it. And there's a lot of people praising Tim Curry, richly deserved. They talk about shooting in Vancouver. I like that they gave a little bit of a moment to Jonathan Brandis, who passed away. Richard Thomas mentions how he felt bad that they had to put a mole on him to match Richard Thomas's mole. I thought it was strange that with the reaction to Jonathan Brandis' death, they only talked to one of the kids. That seemed like something you would want to talk to each of the kids that were there, who hung out with him, who talked with him, and like have kind of a montage, a series of these people giving their 2 cents on this person that they worked with, who was part of the gang, and who not only ended their life, but ended their life on such a tragic note, self-inflicted. So, again, I thought it was strange that maybe they felt, well, we only need one. But at the same time, you would think the others will want to give their 2 cents on one of their fallen co-stars. So I thought that was kind of a... And even Richard Thomas. I would think I would like to hear Richard Thomas's thoughts on that whole thing. Since he played a younger version, I think they had to spend time with each other, try to get each other's mannerisms. So I would love to hear like Richard Thomas's thoughts on that. So yeah, I thought not including that was a bit weird, and that's something I didn't really care for. They do a little bit of John Ritter. I like seeing the behind the scenes where he's looking at the big spider and he's playing with it. And he looks like a kid at Christmas time. It's like, wow, that's really great. And he's like, I think he's like trying to tell Harry Anderson, look, this is like the mandibles, and this is how the thing moves, and he's getting like really excited about it. And that was nice to see John Ritter being so happy and so jovial, and people had nice things to say about him. Apparently, the kid who played the younger John Ritter showed him Tetris, and Ritter's like, what's that? And then he started playing Tetris and getting into it. So they talked a little bit about Harry Anderson, but not as much. I felt like he wasn't talked about as much as Jonathan Brandis or John Ritter. So I would like to have heard a little bit more about Harry Anderson from some of the actors. Like the older actors, I would like to have heard more about their experience with Harry Anderson. Same with the director. So I thought, like I said, they do, but I thought he got a bit of the short shrift, at least in my opinion. They talk about how the kids, they were sometimes hard to deal with. There were times they were dropping water balloons off balconies on the convertibles. Sometimes they were having too much of a raucous time, and people were like, I'm losing it with these kids, and had to settle them down. I would love to get Seth Green's rebuttal to that, as in talk with the adults first, then ask Seth Green, hey, what do you feel about what these people were saying, and give like kind of your rebuttal to it. The young Bev talked about how the other kids were kind of goofing with her because they had read the book, and in the book there was an orgy. Because in the book there's a point where the kids have an orgy with Beverly, so all the boys have sex with a girl, which I always thought was such a weird ass point in the book. That just, I mean, something to do with doing that is some kind of protection against Pennywise, and like, I still don't get the explanation. I don't get it. I still think it's weird. There's a good reason why it's never been adopted, because it's not needed, and it'd be just sick and weird and stupid, and yeah. I mean, you get her point of view, which I thought was pretty scummy, that the other kids are goofing on her about it. I would like to get the other boys' reaction, to be like, hey, were you goofing on her? She said you were goofing on her. And kind of their reaction to it. Maybe they didn't want to ruffle feathers, but it's just an honest, genuine question. They talked with the people that played the bullies, the three bullies. I didn't realize one of them was a Never-Ending Story as a bully at the end of the film, where the kid gets Falcor and rides, and they're going through the alleyway. I'm like, oh yeah, one of them is the bully, one of the bullies from Never-Ending Story. Okay. They talk about how certain scenes were shot, the opening with Georgie, and how there was a deleted scene where like a fireman, whatever, is holding the dead body on his shoulder, and the mom sees it and screams, but that was cut out. It was deemed bit too intense. But they talked about how they shot that scene and how they had the set build, so Tim's standing, but it's supposed to be a sewer. They talk about how the bit in the shower where it looks like it opens up and Pennywise looks out. They talk about how working on the mummy and the werewolf and some of these creatures they have in there. And of course they talk about the spider, and a lot of people don't like the spider. You know, you tell like Richard Thomas is like, oh well, now we're in a monster movie. There's one or two effects guys that defend the spider. Tommy Wallace, he's being nice about you to tell like he wish he could have done something a bit different. I can understand him saying he wish he could have lit it. Not as, I think he wanted to light it at one stage, but then he was off doing another movie. But he wanted to time it, color time it or whatever, to lessen the lighting. But then instead it was still lit brightly, and he was not crazy about that, which I can see, because if you have low lighting you could create more of an atmosphere. They talk about how it came out and it was successful, and I'm surprised they didn't talk to too many hardcore fans about it. Because usually in these documentaries they go with, okay, who is a hardcore fan, and let's see your collection of Pennywise material, or your wall of Pennywise artifacts, or what the film means to you. They don't really do a whole lot about that. Which I can understand, because this way we're centering on just the making of the film, not on the fandom. So that way you give more time to the people who actually made the film. So I can understand that. I don't remember if that was on the Blu-ray. I don't remember. But I have to think about it. I just need to look it up when people did Blu-ray reviews. But yeah, overall, like I said, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I wish we could have gotten a bit more people's reactions to Jonathan Brandis and Harry Anderson. Let's see. Maybe a bit more conversation to what the ending of the book was. I think they could have really delved into like this. Like one guy goes, well, we could, could have done a space turtle with infinity. So he does mention that. I did like that. That's one of the effects guys, and I don't blame him because I would have said the same thing. A nano tool. I guarantee they asked her. She said no. Which I thought was a shame because, I mean, people always asked her about Superman, Smallville. You think she wanted to talk about something a bit different, and here's your chance, but no. So instead, let's talk about more of Smallville. So that's too bad Annette O'Toole didn't want to do it. Because this, again, you got pretty much all the other adults. You got, again, Tim Reed, Richard Masur, Richard Thomas, Dennis Christopher. Like I said, the other two sadly passed away. So yeah, Annette O'Toole was the only one of the adults. And again, kid-wise, I don't know if they had the kid. I don't think they had the kid. Well, I'm trying to think. Did they have the kid who was the young Richard Masur? I can't remember. They might have. I apologize. I can't remember on that. They had, like I said, it's nice that they got most of the people involved. They got the composer. He's interviewed. He won an award for it, for the music. It's the only award he won, but he's still proud of that. Like I said, they, I think, did as well as you could with this kind of documentary without it being overdrawn 3-4 hour type of thing. So I think you got as much as you could out of it. So it's a good one. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.